Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Oh no, the music just wants to keep going. Oh no, please make it stop. Okay, there we go. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. My name is Jared, and this is Lesson 13 from our Speak Now 3 for GBS Beginner English. I know you're all excited and ready to begin. We're going to go into the last 4 units of our book for this semester and then do the review. This is lesson 13. I used to play Hopscotch. Now, for those of you who've seen the Korean TV show of Squid Game, you'll understand that sometimes we have games from our past that we bring into our life, and all of a sudden we can remember them and use them later on in life, but hopefully not to the extent that they did in Squid Game. I don't want people to die from my games, but there are some of the games that we can bring back. Hopscotch is one of those. So let's get into this. Let's find out what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to start off with a little bit of English grammar. Know your English grammar. What can we learn from it? Then we'll talk into the student book, lesson 13. I used to play Hopscotch, followed up by everybody's favorite part, the workbook, and then we'll wrap it up at the end. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started and learn a little bit of grammar time. Oh no! Yes, we have to learn a little bit of grammar time. I know it's something that everybody says, oh, I don't want to learn that, but we need to. Now, we're going to talk about the words fewer and less. Now, you may say, wow, those two words, they're the same. Well, yes and no. They are the same in that we're using them to count things, but we use them very different. When you use fewer is when we can actually count something, not if we actually do count it. Like there might be 100 people over here and 75 people over here. We can tell that the 75 people is smaller. It's fewer people. We don't actually have to count them, but we can physically say there are fewer people here. Now, when it's something that we can't count, for example, liquids or uncountables, we're going to use less. There is less liquid in this bottle than in this bottle. This bottle happens to have more. What we're going to be using, less and fewer. Now, when we use these, be very careful because some people, native speakers especially, some people will use them wrong. And when they do use them wrong, it sounds strange. So be very careful and work on when to use them. Remember, you want to use fewer when you're talking about something that you can count, and less when it's something that you can't count. All right. So moving along, on to our next part. All right. We're going to go into the actual game. Excuse me, the actual lesson and talk about talk about dying. No, we're not going to talk about dying. No, we're going to talk about how we put things together. So, playing and doing things. I want you to look at these words. We got a playground, a bully, checkers, hopscotch, zoo, and tomboy. So what are these words? Well, a playground is a place where kids usually hang out and play. And they can play on slides, monkey bars, climbing on things, all kinds of fun stuff. A bully. Now, we're going to take a view of a bully in class this week. So when you get to class, you'll get a chance to see what a bully actually is. But a bully is someone who basically picks on someone else without them being fairly returned. This is somebody who does something that's deliberately to hurt or to make someone feel bad. Checkers is played on a chessboard or a checkerboard. We usually call it a checkerboard more than a chessboard, but it's a game of two colors where all the pieces move diagonally, and the only way that you can capture a piece is jumping it. It's a good game. If you haven't learned how to play it, it's really interesting. It's a low-level strategy game. This would be a game that you might learn before you learn to play checkers, before you learn to play chess or paduk. It's a very simple game to learn basic strategies. Doesn't say it's not a bad game. Doesn't say that it's a low-level game. There are some high-level strategies in checkers, but strategies for checkers compared to chess or paduk are much easier to understand. Hopscotch. Now, this is what we mentioned at the beginning of our lesson today. Hopscotch is a kid's game where you throw a little stone and you can't land in that particular square. And then you hop on one foot over those squares. Zoo, place where people go to see animals. I personally do not like zoos. I don't like seeing the animals kept in small cages. And anybody who has gone through COVID-19 and had to stay in their apartment for a long period of time will understand why I think that a zoo. Imagine being an animal stuck in that small enclosure all day, every day. Not what I'd like to do. Anyway, and then the last one, a tomboy. Now, this is a term I don't hear very much anymore. You still hear it, and it's used. It's just that this is in the 21st century becoming less common to use it, but it just refers to usually a girl who happens to like things that are more boy oriented, specifically somebody who's more into sports or physical activities, or doesn't really play with dolls or considered really a girly girl. In the old days, it used to be very common to call people, especially girls, tomboys. They'd go out, they'd play with the boys, they'd do all kinds of things. My best friend growing up, Emily, was a tomboy. I never saw her as a woman, even though she and I went to several dances together. She was always my best friend. And I always saw her as my friend first. A girl, I still don't. Even to this day, I don't see her as a woman. I see her as friend. I can't see her as a woman. But this is an older term. It's still used in movies, but I don't hear it used much anymore these days because there's a lot more sensitivity to the LGBTQ community. And for those who don't understand, LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or queer, there's also a huge area of people that can get categorized by different things: binary, non-binary, asexual. There's a whole other category that gets good into this, but the LGBTQ LGBTQ section is what is different for the 21st century. So you'll be exposed to it. We'll talk a little bit about it in class. I'm not going to talk about it much here because the book doesn't touch on it, but we'll go ahead and we'll move on from this topic. Now, we're going to listen to a conversation between Zoe and Max. They're talking about some games and things they did as kids. So let's go ahead and take a listen. We'll talk on the other side.
Lesson 13. I used to play hopscotch. Page 32. Conversation. A. Listen. What did Max and his friends do when they were kids? What was Zoe like as a child?
What kind of childhood did you have, Max?
I had a great childhood.
What do you remember about it?
Lots of things. For example, my parents had a karaoke machine. My friends and I would pretend we were on TV.
How fun!
What sort of things did you do as a kid?
Oh, I was a tomboy. I used to play baseball.
All right. So Zoe and Max both had different things. Max's family had a karaoke machine. You'd know it here in Korea as a noraebang machine. In the 1980s and 1990s, it started becoming popular. And I know that here in Korea, no outdoor party is complete unless somebody breaks out the noraebang machine. Ah, that is so great. Okay, enough of that. No more coffin dancing. All right, so as you go along, sometimes the fun things that people do as kids can be a lot of fun. It doesn't mean that there are no activities that are for boys or for girls. Let me stress that. There are no activities that are just for boys or just for girls. In the past, there were considered gender different things. Generally, boys played with action figures, girls played with dolls. Boys played baseball and girls played softball. There was a big difference in the past, but in the 21st century and beyond, make sure to include there are no differences. If your daughter in the future wants to play baseball and she's got a fastball that can put people away, by all means, help her to fulfill her dreams. If you happen to like things that are more generally associated with another gender, great. For example, in the past, cooking tended to be a female dominated thing because women usually would cook in the house. But some of the best cooks in the world can be men. My family, you may look at the medical profession and you would think, oh, men are doctors and women are nurses, but not always. In my family, my brother, my father, my uncle, all nurses. My mom, my aunt, and my other aunt also nurses. Yeah, I came from a big line of nursing family. But this is where there are no gender roles. You can do anything you want. Let me say that again. You can do anything that you want. So don't think about only being locked into one place. Now we're going to listen to that conversation between Zoe and Max one more time, but this time there are a couple of extra sentences. Let's see if you can put them into the right places. So let's get started. Here we go.
What kind of childhood did you have, Max? Were you happy?
I had a great childhood.
What do you remember about it?
Lots of things. For example, my parents had a karaoke machine. My friends and I would pretend we were on TV. I was always the star.
How fun!
What sort of things did you do as a kid?
Oh, I was a tomboy. I used to play baseball. Sometimes I miss it.
All right. So as I said, don't get locked into what you think is a gender role. Ladies and gentlemen, does not mean, oh, well, a woman gives birth to a baby, she has to be mom. I know very many stay-at-home dads who happen to be better at it than some stay-at-home moms. And at the same time, I know some women out there who are extremely good businessmen. So you do the jobs that you feel fit for. All right. Now, asking about the childhood. Now, this can be a very good, but a very sensitive topic to discuss. So be very careful when you're asking people about their childhood or about their past. It's a good idea to be friends with the person before you really start asking them some of these detailed questions because Some people get very sensitive with it. Not everyone. You can ask me about my childhood. I'll be glad to tell you anything that happened to me. But not everyone's comfortable with that. So be very careful asking about childhood. And don't be offended if somebody all of a sudden says, you know what? I don't want to talk about that. Thank you very much. Or say something is like, you know what? I really don't want to talk about that. There's perfectly good. Back away from it. You can ask questions. I'm not stopping you from asking questions, but don't be afraid to let someone back away from a question. If they do back away from a question, don't push them. Oh, I have to know the answer. I have to know the answer. I have to know the answer. You're pushing the person away, and they're going to say, thank you very much. Go away. I don't want to talk to you. And you'll just end up
Denied.
with your answers. So be very careful when you're pressing someone for questions. But what do you remember about your childhood? It's a nice open question. I remember a lot of things about my childhood. I was always very happy. I was a good student. I was a little naughty because of my sense of humor. I got into some trouble, but I didn't get into real trouble. My brother, on the other hand, he got into some real trouble growing up, but nothing too bad. My brother and I both had good childhoods where we grew up well, and I think that my mom and dad did a very good job with both of us. Games did you play? Now, think about the games that you played as a kid. The Squid Game that I mentioned at the beginning of the video does pull some of those old style games from the past: red light, green light, hopscotch, um, the dalgona, the candy, and these are things that as a kid you can play and do all kinds of things. I remember being a kid running around all the time outside. I was never enjoying it, and I was never the fastest kid. I was always the second or the slowest kid, but that's okay. We still had fun. Then describe what it is you did. Reminiscing about your childhood is just talking about your past, the distant past. Did you play a lot of video games? Did you go to the PC rooms a lot? What was it that was interesting to you as a kid? Your generation growing up in the 21st century, probably some of the things that were dominating were StarCraft, Pokemon, Digimon, lots of things that can reminisce from your past. For those of you who said Mario, guess what? I remember when Super Mario first came out. It came out when I was in the 3rd grade, and I wanted a Nintendo so bad. But it wasn't until I was in the 8th grade, no, correction, 6th grade, that I was actually able to buy a Nintendo. And I bought a Nintendo from a friend of mine who decided he wanted to buy a more advanced system, the Neo Geo at the time, which if you look it up, it's completely gone. But anyway, he wanted to buy that one, and he was selling off his Nintendo, and I bought his Nintendo for $50. $50 that I had saved and earned. I was actually $5 short, and I had asked my mom, can I borrow $5 so I could buy this? And my mom said, well, what are you going to do for that $5? I said, I'll do anything that you ask me to do. My mom said, if I ask you to mow the yard tomorrow, will you do that? I said, I'll mow it right now. And I did. She gave me $25 for mowing the yard, and I went and bought the Nintendo from my friend. It was great. And my brother and I played that Nintendo for years. I still miss that one. A lot of good games there. Anyway, so reminiscing about your childhood, I'm going to stop reminiscing about mine because too many good memories, too many crazy memories and fun days played games. Moving on. All right, so now we're going to listen to this section, and this is where sometimes in English it can get a little confusing about certain words. Used to, past tense, and used to, if you say them quickly and you don't say them very carefully, they can almost sound the same. So take a listen and see what you think.
Page 33. Pronunciation. A. Listen and practice. Notice how used to and used to are pronounced the same. 1,
I used to play hopscotch.
2,
I didn't used to play hopscotch.
All right, so the D and T sounds, because they are in your mouth the same thing. The only difference is D has your voice and T usually used to. Used to. They don't you think so we blend them together, and when we blend them together, they can sound different. So be very careful with that. If you have someone like myself who is very clear, I used to do that. I usually try to make it very distinct, but not everyone does. So when you're listening to it, put it into context. If they're talking about the past, probably using the past tense. They're talking about something present tense, they are probably using present tense. You have to listen to the context. Okay. Now, class activity. We're going to do this part of this in class on Monday and Tuesday of this week and find some answers. Nicknames. Now, everybody had nicknames. God knows I have a lot of nicknames. You all use one of my nicknames in class. You either call me Jerry Teacher or Coach. These are nicknames. These are two ways that I know when someone comes up to me and say, "Hey, Coach," I know that you're instantly one of my students. "Hey, Jerry Teacher." Jerry, I automatically know that you're one of my students. The only person who uses Jerry that's not one of my students is my wife. It's the only person other than my students that uses Jerry. Everyone in my family uses my nickname Jer, which I had talked about before in a previous lesson, that my brother couldn't say Jared growing up, so shortened it down to Jer. And so that was my nickname through all of my family, my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad. They're all use Jer. When I use coworkers, it's Jared. This is just nicknames, but I also have, when I play video games, I have several nicknames. I play a good character, I usually use the name Bishop. I use a bad character, I use the name Wolf. If I'm playing a female character, it's usually a different name. And you may say, "Teacher, you play female characters in games?" Yeah. You say, "Teacher, why are you going to play a female character in a game?" And then my answer to that is, why not? I'm going to be staring at an avatar for hours playing this game. I would rather look at a female avatar than a male avatar. Just my personal opinion. But that's just me. Anyway, so look at these. Do you look very different from when you were younger? Most definitely. When I was younger, I didn't have a goatee. I wore glasses and I had hair. Okay, no sympathy for the teacher. No sympathy. All I'm going to hear are those fun little crickets. Oh, when I start talking about my past, and all I get is, class time. Okay, are you good at something now that you couldn't do when you were younger? Actually, I'm much better at a lot of things now than when I was younger. Thanks for experience. I understand music much better than when I was a kid. I wish I had learned in the past what I know now about music. I'd have been a much better musician in high school and in college. For those of you who don't know, I play the saxophone. And so sometimes getting out there and all right. So sometimes you can get out there and have a good time. I know a lot more about music now and understand it a whole lot better. Thank you, YouTube. Do you enjoy something that you no longer do? How do I answer that? There were some activities I enjoyed doing as a kid that I don't enjoy doing now. Playing volleyball. I like still playing volleyball. I like swimming, but some of the other sports I liked as a kid, I don't like them very much anymore. Partly because I'm getting older, I'm getting fatter, and I just don't have the time to play them. And the last one. Do you enjoy eating something now that you hated as a kid? I'm going to do this question in two ways. Yes, there are foods now that I you used to hate as a kid, that I like now. Coffee, alcohol, um, Brussels sprouts, um, turnips, foods that I hated as a kid, I love now. And my mother told me I would. I have very much my mother's taste buds because the opposite is also true. Some of the foods that I loved as a kid, I can't stand now. Good example, especially around Easter, Cadbury eggs. Oh, when I was a kid, I used to eat those all the time. I would get them at Easter time. I put them in the refrigerator and freezer and keep them for months if I could avoid eating them. But I would keep them around for a long time, and I loved those. And I was the only one in my family that really loved them. My dad likes them, but he didn't love them. I loved them as a kid. Moved to Korea. I have had Cadbury eggs twice since then. I can't stand them. They're too sweet. I'm like, how could I eat these as a kid? And I used to eat them all the time. Ugh, yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about this in class. We're going to do a survey. You're going to walk around and find out some things that people can do. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on. And now we're going to go to our favorite part. Yes. Yes, I know. I know. Scream away. You go ahead. Go ahead. It's time for the workbook. Can't avoid it. All right. First part. Here, you're going to have a puzzle where you're going to have to find some words about your childhood. Now, you're going to have to find 6 words that go in there. Now, when you find those 6 words, then look at the letters you didn't circle and write every 4th letter below to find a hidden message. So there's one hidden message. So, for example, if the 4th letter, so where it starts off with W. So you know, 4th letter, 1, 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, one of these letters probably spells a word, but W and then this H, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. A. Pull up the letter and find the hidden message here. Now, this is a puzzle. It's a little bit of a challenge. I know you can do it. All right, do-overs. Oh, I miss the days of do-overs. Yes, when I was a kid, if you did something wrong, you might say, do-over, because you know you screwed up, but you want to get another chance. And sometimes you are allowed to do a do-over, not always. But I want to go ahead and read this for you. Take a listen. As I read this, go ahead. You can look at the next part where you're going to have to circle the correct word or phrase that completes the sentence. So take a listen. Do-overs. Have you ever wanted a chance to do something over again? Only this time you would do it differently. I used to be very shy when I was in high school. When teachers called on me in class, I couldn't get the words out. When a girl spoke to me in the hallway, I stammered and blushed. Or worse yet, I looked at the ground. And I just kept walking. I wanted to be friendly, but my nerves got the better of me. My heart used to beat fast, and I'd start sweating. Our school had a big dance every year, and there was one girl I really liked. She was the smartest student in our class, and she was very nice and funny. I tried to invite her to a dance one day. I approached her at her locker. Just as I was about to speak, another girl up, instead of asking Helen to the dance, I asked if she had a pencil. I was so embarrassed. I didn't even go to the dance. Over the years, I've thought about Helen. I've also gotten much more confident last year. I found out Helen on social network. I sent her a message and I asked her out for coffee. Reminds me of middle school for myself. There was a girl in middle school that I had a huge crush on. And everybody everybody in the school knew I had a crush on her. She even knew I had a crush on her, but I was too shy to do anything. On Valentine's Day that year, I was in the 8th grade in middle school. I sent her a flower. It was my way of letting her know that I liked her, but I didn't sign my name to the flower. She knew who it was from, but that was as far as it ever went. And I'm not afraid of what happened. I wouldn't go back and change it. There are a lot of things in my life. Other than that, there are a lot of other things in my life that I wish I could change. Some of them, and we all have those regrets, things we would like to change. Most of them I would never change. Even the things that were bad, I realized that they changed me in a way that made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change that. There's only one thing that I wish I had completed, but I didn't. And that was to finish off my Eagle Scout when I was in Boy Scouts. I went all the way up. I got up through the rank of star. I was ready to go for my life rank. I just needed a couple more merit badges for life. And then I could have gotten my life badge and then more merit badges and moved on to being an Eagle, but I gave up on it. I moved on in Scouts. I was still a Scout all the way through high school, moved to Explorers, but becoming an Eagle lost some of its appeal. That's the one thing that I wish I had actually finished. I enjoyed being a Scout, and I learned many skills that I have used over and over and over again. But do-overs, if I could finish my Eagle Scout, that would be one job that I wish I had finished. There are other things that I'd like to change, but if I changed them, I wouldn't be who I am today. All right, so go back. Look at what the writer's problem was in high school. Now, this is talking about high school. I told you about time that I was in middle school. Got to high school. My best friend and I always hung out together. Wasn't until I was a senior in high school that I actually started dating another girl, and it was actually partly because my best friend kept saying, go on, go ask her. She was like, well, okay. I asked her out, and we dated for a year. It was great. Now, how has he changed? What are some of the things that changed for that writer? And is there an experience that you had when you were younger that you would like to do over? Whether you'd want to do it, or whether you think, maybe I could do it over, maybe not. Think about it. What would you do differently? Then write about an experience you had when you were younger and how you would like to do that differently. Now, if you say, I would do nothing ever different, I don't believe you. There's always something. Missing out on an opportunity or doing something that you wish, oh man, I wish I had just told the truth. I wish I had not done this. Great. What would you have changed differently? Or if you say, I wouldn't have changed anything differently, why wouldn't you have changed it? Now it says, share experience with a classmate and are there similarities? Do not list this as a, yes, there are similarities, or no, there are differences. That will get you credit for this answer. I want you to talk about how things could be different. If you don't want to talk with your classmates, that's fine. Talk to your mom or dad. If you don't want to talk to your mom and dad, talk to your dog or your things, or talk to your friend Bobo the monkey. I don't care, but talk about someone. Don't leave this blank. It's a zero. Don't put down there are similarities or there are differences. That will not get you credit. Give some examples. What would be different and what would change? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come now to the very end of this lesson. We talked about your grammar. We talked about English grammar and knowing what grammar will be like. We talked about fewer and less. Remember, when you use fewer, it's something that you can count. Less, something you can't count. We talked about used to play hopscotch, talking about the past games and activities we did when we were younger. We talked about the workbook, and now we've wrapped it all up. Ladies and gentlemen, you are doing an excellent job. We are getting close to the end of the semester. And as we get closer and closer to the end of the semester, remember, it's all coming together and we're going to have some fun. Until that time, have some great times and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.